So now we're going to start a new character called Moses. Now at this stage, Abraham, Jacob and Joseph have all died, and we've come to the book of Exodus in the Bible. And Moses was one of probably the most famous of all Bible characters. In fact, the first 5 books of the Bible, also known as the Pentateuch, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers and Deuteronomy. Moses wrote all those books of the Bible. And let's learn about the life of Moses. Remember, Joseph has brought Jacob, his father, and now they're living in Egypt under Pharaoh. And Pharaoh was so pleased with Joseph that he gave them the land, and they stayed in the land of Goshen. And here they are, and God is blessing them. They've lots of animals, large family. But now that Pharaoh died, and a new Pharaoh has come onto the throne, a new king. And he sees how the Israelites, who are also known as the Hebrew, from now on they're known as the Hebrew children. He noticed their families are big. In fact, altogether they're becoming bigger than the Egyptian people. And he began to get afraid, and he talked to his wise counselors, and they said if they become so large, they might overtake or overcome, or if a battle breaks out, they will fight for the enemy and might not fight for you. So he began to get afraid. Then he made a law. He made a law that all the Israelites, the Hebrew people, had now become slaves. They must work for the Egyptians. And now the Hebrew people who belonged to Moses had no longer freedom in their lives, and they had to become slaves and work under cruel, brutal taskmasters. But they continued to be happy, to be content, and they still had lots of children, and their families became so big. But Pharaoh made a law. He said every baby boy that is born under a certain age had to be thrown into the river Nile. That was a cruel, cruel thing. And the mothers began to get afraid as the soldiers would burst open the doors. If they found a little boy, they would take him out, kill him, and throw him into the river Nile. Cruel, cruel days were the days of the Bible. That's how cruel. That was sin. When sin came into the world, it brought death and all the problems that comes with that. But one of the little boys was born into a family. And this family was a father called Amram, and the mother was called Jochebed, and the little girl was called Miriam, and the little boy was called Aaron, and then the little brother called Moses. So Moses had a big brother who was 3 years older called Aaron, and an older sister called Miriam. Now, whenever the mother had this baby, she loved it, the baby, the little boy Moses. He wasn't called Moses, but she loved him with all of her heart. And she decided, I'm going to try and keep my child as long as I can. But after 3 months, it was impossible to hide a little boy because he would cry, he would make noise, and that a baby child naturally doesn't know to be quiet. But she decided she would do something. And she made a little ark made of bulrushes, and she covered it with black sticky stuff, tar stuff, to make it waterproof. And then she took the little boy in the little ark of bulrushes, and she placed him in the river amongst the reefs. Now she had a plan, but ultimately God had an even bigger plan. And there she walked away, and her sister watched to see what would happen. Little did they know that Pharaoh's daughter came down there to bathe, to wash herself. They never had nice hot showers or baths like we have today. And she noticed, and she heard the little cry from the baby in the ark. And she walked over, she sent for it and brought, and she saw the most beautiful child, infant baby, in the little basket. And right away she loved it. And look who was watching. It was Moses' older sister, Miriam. And she ran over and to see what would happen. And right away, the princess, the Pharaoh's daughter, she said, go and fetch the child's mother. And the child's mother was brought. Who was that? It was Moses' mother. And she said, will you please look after this baby? And I'm going to pay you for looking after it. Not only did she get her child back, but now she's able to look after her child and get paid money for doing exactly the same thing. God was in all of this. And now Moses was taken to Egypt, into the Pharaoh's, into the palace to live with the king. and the prince's daughter. And she named him Moses, which means drawn out or taken out from the water, and hence Moses got his name Moses. And there he lived. And for the next 40 years, Moses was going to live in the palace, learning to be someone. Not only was he instructed in the ways of the Egyptians, but his mother was teaching him about the true God of Israel and how to live for him, to serve him, and to do what was right and to keep the law. And after some time, one day Moses, as he began to think about his mother's people, and he was seeing how his people were treated, were being beaten, were been treated cruelly and been whipped all the time. And one day he saw one of his own people, an Hebrew, and he was being beaten and whipped really hard. And Moses attacked him and beat him and actually killed him. He didn't mean to kill him, but he killed him. And he was afraid what he'd done. And the Bible says he buried him in the sand. And then he thought nobody was watching. He thought no one seen. But what he'd done was wrong. And somebody did see him, because the next day he was out and he was walking and he saw two of the Hebrew people arguing with each other. And he said, "Brothers, my people, why are you arguing with each other?" And they said, What is it to you, Moses? Does that mean you're going to kill one of us as well, like you've killed one of the Egyptians? And Moses realized that when he killed someone, everyone knew about it and everyone was talking about it. And Moses got afraid, because if this came to Pharaoh, he also would be killed. So he runs away. He escapes from the palace. He escapes out of Egypt and he runs for his life. And the Bible says he comes across a well, and there was this woman and she was trying to water her sheep, but the other shepherds kept chasing the women away, this girl away. And he said to the shepherds, "Stop chasing her away." And he allowed the girl to come and get her water. The girl took him back to meet her father, and that was Jethro. And Jethro loved Moses, and Jethro gave him a job, and Jethro gave him his daughter to marry. And as a result, for the next 40 years, Moses spent his life in the wilderness, being a shepherd, learning to be nobody. So for 40 years, he was training to be somebody, and now he realized he was nobody. Did God forget about him? Of course not. God was going to start his plan for Moses' life right now, here in the wilderness.